As a creative aspect, TV is one of the best things that we do as a species. Along with music and film and books, they bring out the best creative of all of us. They entertain and they bring so much joy to many. They invoke emotion and enable us to feel things that we bury sometimes deep down. That's what this podcast is for. Welcome to A Million Little TV Shows. This is what I call the breakdown while I break down. Each week I will go through a different TV show, a different season of that TV show, and different episodes of that show. And I will break down not only emotions, but I will break down stories from my life, and let you know why these TV shows mean so much to me, and why I believe that they are some of the most important shows out there. This podcast is here to highlight a lot of smaller TV shows, or TV shows that don't really get a platform, because we know of a bunch of TV shows that get a multitude of different podcasts. Ted Lasso, Game of Thrones, The Office, they've all got several podcasts out there analysing all types of different things. But there's not many out there for the little guy, and that's what I'm trying to highlight. So each week I will go through a different show, different seasons, different episodes, and I will go across all different kinds of genres and different countries to bring you what I believe is some of the best TV out there. So I'm glad you're here with me. I'm glad you're here for this journey. And if you've watched the shows before and you wanted to come here and get an analysis on them and have someone go through them and pick out bits that you might have enjoyed, then I'm glad you are here. If, however, you have never watched the show and you just want to come and have someone talk in your ear about different TV shows, I'm glad you are here. But I hope that it inspires some people to go and seek out these TV shows. They deserve to be watched. They were made with love and care, and they are the same as this podcast, made with love and care. I am your host, Mike, and I will take you through every adventure, every horror, every piece of drama, and I hope that you enjoy the show. Hello there, and welcome back to this A Million Little TV Shows podcast. This is now episode 6 of season 13, and today we're going to be finishing up the coverage of season 1 of Physical. Now, as I've said, this is a fun series, but also it's been very kind of dark. Some of the themes around it are really dark. And again, Rose Byrne in this is excellent. However, I just cannot justify the character and the way that she treats people. I think it's really horrible, but it also shows that she hates herself so much and she just hates the outside world as well. And all they want to do is accept her for who she is. Especially people like Greta, when all Greta wants is to be her friend. She thinks she's glamorous, she thinks she's a nice person, and it turns out that the thoughts inside Sheila's head are abhorrent. Not only about herself, but about other people around her. So, I like the show, I like the concept of the show, and I really hope that by the end of the season, we see a redemption arc for her, because, well, I think the show deserves it. And I think that people like Greta should be accepted more instead of being shunned as they were, and especially in this show so far. But anyway, that's enough about me and my hang-ups with the show, but I do really like it, I am really enjoying it, and it is a very dark comedy. And of course, the subject matter of bulimia and hating of your own body is still prevalent today, so it's an interesting show nonetheless. But anyway, I'm going to get into it. So this is Physical Season 1, Episodes 8 to 10. Episode 8, Let's Not and Say We Did. So, now that Sheila is with her parents, we kind of start to understand where this tension comes from within her. We see more into her past and that she's become emotionally damaged by what's happened previously. And it's what has driven her on to be this, well, she can be vicious, she's a bit of an arsehole at times, mainly in her own head, but she is. And we can see that the struggles are really starting to come to the forefront as to why she actually is the way that she is. But we also know that she has got these financial problems. It looks like she is looking around the house for things to actually sell. She's pretty much eyeing up all of these items, or maybe she's looking to smash them. I'm not entirely sure. We find out later on that she doesn't mind smashing stuff around her parents' house, but of course all the things that she's looking at are quite expensive, so yes, it may be smashing them, but it may be getting money for them. However, she just comes out right and says it. She says that they disappointed her when she was younger, and they know what happened to her. Now, we're unsure as to what that is until the end of the episode, but she's not exactly happy with her parents at this point. They want to see their granddaughter, and obviously they haven't seen her since she grew up. And Sheila's like, I don't care what you want. Yes, you can see my granddaughter, but you're going to have to pay me money to see her. Because she doesn't want her daughter being in that house where things have happened to Sheila in the past, and having her daughter in a very similar situation. Well, now since we're only seeing 3 characters at this point, Sheila, her mum and her dad, we can only suggest that maybe the dad has done something to Sheila in the past. But later on it is revealed that it was just a friend of Sheila's father that turned up at the house and, in Sheila's words, came into my room, took my pants down and spat on his hand, and she doesn't reveal any more. But we can only imagine what actually happened there. And it's kind of harrowing to see such a young, vulnerable girl have that happen. We know it happens. It's an unfortunate way of the world right now. And now with people in certain places of power that can basically absolve these people of these bad things, it makes people think that they're invincible. And so it is such a worrying time for the world right now. But obviously, like I said, this is back in the 80s and, well, I mean, I'm not going to say it wasn't prevalent because it absolutely was. But when she brings it up to her parents don't seem to give a shit. I mean, they may give a shit, but they seem to kind of drown out her voice. And this might explain where the vicious inner voice comes from, and the eating disorder, her obsession with being in control all the time, and that constant feeling that she isn't enough come from. And as much as it doesn't excuse her behaviour, it helps us kind of understand where Sheila came from and the struggles that she went through her younger life, and now this need that she has to please her husband all the time, but also make sure that she viciously denigrates herself while she does. And what we see from Sheila's parents is, because they're so kind of well off, and this again seems to be something that is currently happening now, that they're more about maintaining their appearance as a well-to-do couple and rich beyond their wildest dreams and successful and all that stuff, instead of having a conversation about how badly they have treated their daughter and how they could have prevented what happened to her, and also not being able to confront the truth of what happened to her. And it may be that the neglect that Sheila feels from her parents is the thing that did just as much damage as the actual physical abuse. I can't imagine ever being able to tell my parents about what happened, but things happened when I was younger and kind of fucked me up for a while. And so I really empathise with the character at this point, even though she's been a bit of an arsehole. And again, I've been a bit of an arsehole in my life as well, but we try and learn and grow from that. The good thing is that we see a different point of view from Danny in this episode. So throughout this, they're still in the house in Hollywood. They're still visiting their friends Jack and Tanya, and it's been alluded to in previous episodes that Jack was actually in a relationship in high school or in college with Sheila, and they ended up drifting apart, and she ended up getting with Danny, and he went off with Tanya. And now he is with Tanya, and he regrets his decision. It seems that he is very jealous of what Danny's got. Even though he's got this incredible house up in the hills and it's beautiful and he's got a wife that wants to fuck him all the time, he's still jealous of not being able to be with Sheila. But instead of being the normal Danny that he isn't selfish, he isn't being kind of immature, he shows a supportive side when it comes to Sheila. And when Sheila comes back from her mum's, we see that Danny's been really worried about her. And when she explains what happened and she explains that they've got to go and probably see her parents, Danny's there all the time with her. He's at her side. And when she ultimately does what she does, which we see kind of an image in Sheila's head of what she wants to do, and she wants to just walk into the house and start throwing stuff and tell them how much of a piece of shit that her parents are. What we actually see is them sat outside in the car, and she basically runs up and starts throwing over planters and pulling up her mum's flowers before she jumps in the car and they all drive off. And it's a different side of Danny that we're seeing. He's a lot more supportive, but towards the end of the episode, I can't imagine he's going to be. Because when they get home, they find out that Jerry has been going through some drawers and he's actually found 2 diaries. One with quotes of all the money that they've been taking in, through the campaigns and stuff, and the other one is actually the money that Sheila has been spending and trying to recoup the money that she's lost over time because of her reckless spending. Now, at the end of the last episode, we saw that Greta had decided to actually shave her head, and we see the repercussions of that this time when she reveals that to her husband Ernie. Now, Ernie has been very kind of not dismissive, but not really interested in his wife. And it's only when she reveals that she shaved her head now that he is all over her. And even her kids notice that she's got this kind of swagger about her the next morning after, well, they've probably had sex. But she's glowing. She looks great. She's really, changed the way that she is in this one act. Of course, at first, it's a very tense conversation between her and Ernie because, well, she's done something that is kind of kink-shaming him. Or, I don't suppose it is kink-shaming. I suppose it's kind of helping her husband out, but without him actually knowing that she was trying to help him. And when she actually explains why she did it, and when he explains why he does it and why he enjoys it, they realise, hang on a minute, we've got this perfect opportunity now. And they seem to reconcile and things start to go a little bit better for them. And like I say, Greta's kind of got this swagger about her now, and it's really good to see. Now, one of the characters I haven't really talked about is this John Bream character. He's very successful. He's got a lot of money and influence within the town. And from what we know, he's got kind of a conservative Mormon background. However, he is clearly miserable. And we see this show start to draw these parallels between both John and Sheila, that they are chasing something to make them happy, but neither of them really found peace yet. Sheila, it's with food, and John, it's through his businesses and his connections and making money. But with him doing that, a lot of people are starting not to like him. And especially when it comes to Tyler, who is the surfer, well, it's John Bream's company that are doing this project that's going to affect the surfers in the area and affect the water in the area. And yeah, he just kind of seems down on himself quite a lot, or just unhappy in his own marriage. But getting back to Tyler and Bunny, this episode is a little bit worrying for Bunny because, well, in the last episode we saw that Tyler kind of just went off and bought drugs and got high. And he did it with money that Bunny had given him to do something else. He'd also bought a surfboard at the time as well. But Bunny had given him this money for something else, and once he actually comes back to her, we find her cowering in a van. And it turns out, well, we saw what happened. She's been sexually abused on the street. She got pissed off with Tyler. She threw some money at the ground. And of course, it was all payphones back then. And when she's gone to try and pick this money up, a man has approached her, telling her that he has a metal detector in his car and that he would happily help her out with the issue that she's having. While she's digging around in the sand to try and find these coins, all of a sudden she looks over and he's pleasuring himself. So it's kind of a bad time for her. It's really depressing. And when Tyler actually turns up to try and find her in the van, she thinks he's there to attack her, and she is clutching a knife. So we see that this is probably going to affect Bunny throughout the rest of this season now. And hopefully she doesn't end up doing something stupid. Episode 9, Let's Face the Facts. So we're getting into the nitty-gritty now of the actual show, and as we go into the final episode, we actually see that actually each character is being forced to confront truths that previously in this season they've basically been avoiding. So we don't actually get to see the confrontation between Sheila, Danny and Jerry, but it turns out that it's kind of gotten around. We see them actually out at a beach trying to film some content for Danny's campaign, and Simone comes over and she asks about what's been going on. It seems that it's only been said that there's some financial troubles, but of course we know what's been really going on. But Simone notices something on Sheila's knuckles, and it's something that at some point she's going to have to let Danny in on, because Sheila certainly isn't going to do it. But when it comes to Sheila, we're now starting to see that her being separate from Danny is something that in the future she may look into. Not having him there anymore is going to be kind of beneficial towards what she wants in life. It always seems that she has been reacting to her marriage and her finances and everything else that's been going on with her, and especially the voice in her head. But because of this whole entrepreneurship with the aerobics and the fact that they're going to be able to sell their tapes well, this could be something good for them. And by them, I mean Bunny and Tyler, and potentially now Greta. So what we see is at the beginning of the episode, Bunny and Tyler come over to see Sheila because, well, they've been told that there are tapes out there that are being made illegally on their behalf. Someone is selling their workout tape because Bunny gets a class full of people that turn up. Bunny basically tells them that they can't all have a version of the video that she put out because there aren't that many out there. But these women are insistent that they have bought this video. They show her it and, well, it's not the front cover that Sheila and Bunny actually agreed on. And so they come over to see Sheila. They basically say to her, look, we need to track this person down and find out who's been doing this. And after Sheila realizes that she really needs to go for this, she can't just keep punishing herself for not being a good wife or a good mother or whatever it is. She has to take the initiative to actually put herself out there, and the other things will come. And so once she's decided on this, she actually speaks to Greta about it, who earlier on in the episode had actually started to form a bond with Sheila. She basically told Sheila she'd been disappointed with her because of the way that Sheila had treated her previously. Sheila apologizes, which is something that Sheila very rarely does, and no voice comes in her head of telling her how much of a piece of shit she is. Greta says that she's her friend and that she just wanted to help her out. If she needed that camera, she would have given it to her. She didn't have to steal it. And Sheila starts to realize now that the people around her, people like Bunny and Tyler and Greta, all have her best interest at heart, whereas Danny seems to just have his own. She tells Greta that she needs the help, and they end up driving over to Bunny and Tyler, and they go and see this guy who's been making these bootleg copies. They threaten him, take the tapes back, and end up taking his money that he's made on these videos. So now they see that this can actually work. They can actually make some real good money out of this, and Bunny has really started to see the light when it comes to making these videos. And that's a huge shift for Sheila. And now it seems that a future away from Danny might be possible. But also we see at the end of the episode that she tells Danny, this is how we're going to win. Now, one of the interesting things that other shows haven't done before is it shows that even though Sheila and others around them do have success and potentially will have success, it doesn't eliminate what is going on internally. Now, certain shows will show that, oh, this person has got to a successful point in their life and this is how great it is, and they don't show that just because they've got to the pinnacle and where they want to be, that things still are hard. And especially when it comes to things like bulimia and mental struggles that people have. And we find that success isn't actually a cure for any sort of insecurities that you have. And these things don't just magically disappear because you've got that success now. And so Sheila's going to have a lot still to deal with going into this final episode. But now, either yes, she has the backing of Danny, which she's had before in the past, like in the last episode, or she can go out on her own. She has Bunny and Tyler and Greta, like I said, people that want to be around her and want to help her out. But she just has to kind of give herself a break. As for Danny, we see that he is starting to have doubts about this political campaign. Throughout the season, we've seen that he's always kind of been confident about where it's going, but now we see that because it's getting closer and closer to the final days of this, that potentially this could go downhill for him. And now with the money affairs that's been going on, well, it's not exactly ideal. He also feels like his wife is keeping things from him, and like I said before, this comes to the forefront when he is confronted by Simone. Simone tells him about what happened on the beach earlier than that day, and he can't quite believe it. He tells her, look, my wife's always kind of looked after her figure, but nothing too drastic. She's not ill, but we know that she is. We know that she is punishing herself for what she does. And when Simone points out the similarities between Sheila and an old friend of Simone's, basically saying how she's got bite marks on her knuckles from forcing her fingers down her throat, that maybe Danny now needs to start looking at what his wife is doing, not just financially but mentally, because she is obviously not in a good place. Now, looking at the character of John Bream, and going back to what I was saying about success, we can see what success has done for this guy, because he's basically got everything. He's ambitious, but the marriage that he's in, he kind of feels trapped in it. We can see that he's always uncomfortable around his wife, even when they end up going to therapy. it seems like he is trapped in his own marriage and doesn't know how to get out of it. And because Sheila is basically hunting for the success that Bream kind of has, well, he's still unhappy. So the question's got to be, is Sheila going to be happy if she achieves her goals? Or is the actual problem going to be something much deeper? For instance, she's going to get to the end of this and some of the problems that she has are still going to be there. For instance, the fact that she was abused as a child, that's still going to be there. She hasn't confronted that yet. She hasn't confronted her parents about what they did about it. And she doesn't seem to realize that throwing herself into all of this, the business and the entrepreneurship and the aerobics, well, it doesn't really amount to much in the end. She has to combat her own demons. And so, essentially, reality is catching up with everyone in the show, Sheila especially. And at some point, they're going to have to face facts, and not everyone's going to like what they find. Episode 10, Let's Get Together. So after the success of the tape and the fact that they found out that they've made more money than they realised, because, well, it was being sold on the side, they actually decide to put on like a mall-wide show. Essentially, they invite the press down and have it kind of as a fundraiser for Danny's campaign. Plus, they can actually put Danny's name out there. So in every video that's been sold, they're putting leaflets in about Danny and his campaign. So they're hoping through Sheila that they can actually get Danny over the line with this. The issue may lie, however, in the fact that Danny and Sheila might not be together by the end of this episode, because it feels like now there is some sort of transformation within Sheila. Instead of being a season ender where it wraps things up neatly, they're making you want to come back for next season, which is obviously the point of a season ender. And so even though she's got demons that we now know of, and we know why she is the way that she is, she doesn't confront any of them. However, things are going to become more complicated as time goes on for Sheila. But we've seen throughout the season that most of the time she has been supporting Danny. She's a mother and she's also a business partner to Bunny and Tyler, but mainly she has been, well, pulling her hair out trying to help Danny's campaign, even though she's been fighting the battles in her own head as well. But now she's starting to see with the turnout for this aerobics live demonstration that she's got something here. A lot more people want this, and this could be something good for her future, whether that includes Danny or not. But we see that Sheila is starting to make decisions on what she wants and not what everyone around her wants. And even though that can be revolutionary for Sheila, even though it may sound simple to us, it's going to shape the whole of next season. Now, the issues around that are going to be the fact that Danny and Bunny are both feeling her trying to pull away. When it's reported on in the news that they've had this amazing aerobics session in the mall, Bunny isn't mentioned. Her studio isn't mentioned. It's all about Sheila. And when Danny sees the article in the paper, again, it's the same thing. He sees that only his campaign was mentioned on page 2 and it was a brief paragraph, whereas Sheila has a 2-page spread and she ended up on the front page. So both are now starting to feel overshadowed by Sheila and this juggernaut that is coming towards them. We also see how entrepreneurial Sheila is actually becoming. She ends up getting a meeting with a man named Oggy Cartwright, who is a distributor nationwide for all types of videos, and he tells her, look, I think we can have you as a big star. They want to make her huge in this particular arena. And we see that when the contract's thrown down in front of her, she doesn't hesitate. She takes a look at it, and she seems very offended when Oggy actually says to her, look, take this home and have your husband explain it to you. She seems put out by that. This isn't anything to do with her husband. This is about her. She is a strong, independent woman, even though she is married, and she wants to make sure that he sees that. The only problem with this is the fact that Bunny should be a part of this as well. But at no point is Bunny actually mentioned. And when Sheila goes up to see John Bream, because he is the manager of this mall that they're in, John basically asks her, what was all that about with the guy with the suit? Sheila tells him all about it, but even he picks up on the fact that she never mentioned Bunny once. And then he starts to wonder, well, since your husband's so liberal, I imagine that you did tell them about your partner and that this isn't just a thing that you do. And of course, Sheila starts to realise that she didn't do any of that. She's taking this on full hog, and she wants this all for herself, which is obviously going to cause tension next season between her and Bunny. Now, as we spoke about previously, Danny is holding out everything when it comes to this political dream of his. However, when it ends up falling apart, because, well, he's gone up against someone a lot richer and a lot more experienced than he is, this seems to absolutely shatter his character. And we actually find out how insecure and selfish Danny is. He's deeply lost in his own flaws, and he puts a lot of front on to try and show that he is a strong man, but actually he tends to be very weak. We see this during his confrontation with Sheila. Again, in the last episode, he was told by Simone that Sheila had been having problems with bulimia. When he tries to confront her about it, he doesn't do it with any sort of compassion. He just kind of bullies her into eating something. Even though she says that she's already eaten it, she doesn't want to eat anything, he bullies her. And it's really not a good look for him. You start to feel that, yes, he may not be a villain, but he is, like I say, deeply insecure. And eventually, when he gets beaten in this political race, his instant thought is that he has lost this race and now he's lost his woman. Because all along he's felt that she was just going to run off if he didn't win. Well, he bullies her and then she runs off, and then he starts to say, well, it's because of the reason that I lost. But it's not. He's just very lost in everything around him instead of actually focusing on his wife and himself. But we now see that they are growing in different directions. Sheila wants this whole aerobics thing to really take off, and she wants to be big. She wants to make money out of this, and she wants to make sure that she enjoys the ride that it takes her on. But of course, that's going to come with its own problems. And since Sheila is a pretty flawed character anyway, it's just going to make those problems come further to the surface. But we have no real answers as to what's going to happen between the two of them. However, the last few shots of the episode, with the fact that Sheila and John Bream were both in the mall after hours, and they seem to be pleasuring themselves while looking at each other, speaks volumes for where the next season's going to go. Now, one thing that's been predominant throughout the season is Sheila's voice in her own head. Throughout the first few episodes, it was there constantly, and as the season's gone on, it seems to have kind of lessened, but when it does come up, it is still incredibly harsh about her. And so, even though now she has something, this aerobics program that she is hoping to get off the ground, it doesn't mean that that silence is there. It doesn't matter how successful you are, there's always something in the back of your mind that tells you different. And if you've managed to silence that voice, then good luck to you. I know mine hasn't, but it's going to be a massive challenge for Sheila in the next season, or in the next 2 seasons, to try and quiet that voice, even when the success comes, especially when the success comes. But now we've started to see that Sheila is beginning to learn her own value. And that's a very important lesson for anyone to learn. And going into season 2, I'm sure we will develop on that. Okay, so what have we seen from this season then? I mean, it's been excellent. We've seen how Sheila has gone from this woman who was basically placating towards her husband and trying to help him out with what he needed and trying to get him the success that he wanted, to someone now who is probably going to outshine him and prove that she has been so held back by this man for so long now. And again, Danny isn't a bad guy, but the way that he hasn't seen Sheila struggle throughout the whole series with, her bulimia and her anxiety and her perfectionism to do things. And I'm not sure if he knew about the childhood trauma, but maybe if he had just seen these things, they could have been a codependent relationship instead of just him depending on her to do everything for him. She never really seemed to get a look in. Again, I don't like the internal monologue that she has. I think the critical side of it is really bad, especially when it comes to other people. Yeah, she insults herself a lot, but she does tend to insult other people as well, and it's kind of gross, but we see where it comes from now. We see that her parents never really looked after the younger version of her, and therefore she's taken that into her adult life, and now she attacks people. Even though it's just in her brain, she attacks those around her that just want to care for her. But we go from a woman who is trapped in her marriage, who is just trying to look after her husband and what her husband wants, to a woman now who is becoming a businesswoman and trying to put herself out there in something that back then wasn't really out there. It's a new medium. It's a new way of doing things. Being able to teach people aerobics in their own home, it wasn't really that big. If it was the back end of the 80s, yeah, it was huge, but the start of the 80s was when it all kicked off, and she was basically in on the ground floor. And so through this discovery of aerobics and the fact that she has managed to find friends in Bunny and Tyler and ended up taking the initiative to actually have this opportunity come up and be able to film it, it just shows her understanding of marketing and presentation and being able to actually make a go of this. And so through aerobics, she finds this freedom. And that's going to be important going forward because it makes her someone who is powerful and someone who is capable. And even though it's not a cure for the actual problems that she's got, well, it's something that can kind of mask it for now. They're going to come out eventually, but for now, she doesn't have to constantly have her mental illness be the center of attention for her. And so even though the inner battle still continues, she can go forward and be successful in what she's doing. And we'll see next season whether that is with or without Danny. But we know if it is without Danny, he's going to be broken by it because he is a deeply flawed individual. And now that his political career has come to a halt, or at least we believe it has, and potentially his wife might leave him, he's got nothing really. He's not a bad guy, like I've said, but he isn't exactly supportive of his wife. Sheila, however, might have something new in the pipeline in the form of John Bream. Now again, like throughout the season, they've shared lingering looks, but at the end of the season, they were playing with each other. Even though they were half a mile apart, they were still looking at each other while they pleasured themselves. So he is definitely going to be something more towards her in the next season. Now, the only person that I've seen who was actually kind of squashed their demons throughout this season was Greta. And what I loved about her was the fact that she was kind of going in on herself. She was kind of scared to be around her husband and thought he was cheating on her and didn't know what to do. And when she actually finds out that her husband loves the way that she looks, she's shocked by that. But it also gives her this boost. She hates the way that she looks, but she thinks that she isn't desirable to her husband, the one person that she wants to be desirable to. She thinks that he's cheating on her, and as soon as the haircut happens, it's pretty much all guns blazing from there on out. He's absolutely in love with his wife, and yes, he's got this weird kink, but they can now work on it together. And as soon as that happens, it just shows that good things can happen to good people. And I believe that Greta and Ernie are both good people in this. And hopefully Sheila sees how Greta has come alive and she actually goes after that for herself. But yeah, I'm really chuffed that I've been able to watch this show again and pick up on some of the themes that have been in it. And it's just been really interesting to watch, and I cannot wait to get back into it next season. But for today, I'm done. I've talked enough, and I cannot wait to crack on with the rest of the season. There's lots of good stuff coming, so I'm going to leave it there. But thank you for being here. Thank you for listening, subscribing, texting, all that shit. But until next time, I will speak to you soon. Bye. As always, thank you for listening to this podcast, and you could really help me and the podcast by giving a like, share, subscribe on all major platforms that you listen to podcasts on. As an independent podcaster, this will just help me exponentially when it comes to actually doing more things with this podcast. I truly do enjoy this, and I absolutely love revisiting these TV shows with you guys. So any engagement from you is always welcome, and I will try and listen to all of you when you give suggestions or just tell me what you think about the podcast. But once again, thank you for listening, and until next time, I will speak to you soon. Bye.